Good, so it's great being here. As David said, it's wonderful to be amongst friends. I was reflecting on the title of our conference, the theme of our title of Standing on the Right Side of History. And I was looking kind of back at periods of history and different stages you go through, and we really live in a period where many would describe, definitely at face value, as one of the most peaceful, despite much war still going on, but most progressive, equal, fair. And so I looked at some kind of key statistics. So I was looking back at 1820, which sounds like a long time ago, but it was only really 200 years ago. And so if you look at 1820, when we look at life expectancy, the global average life expectancy around the world was only 30. Present day, 72. If we look at extreme poverty, around 90% of the world's population in 1820 were living in extreme poverty. When now just less than 10% of the world lives in extreme poverty. Another kind of indicator of how progressive or just a society is, the literacy rates. It's a difficult word to say, especially as a dyslexic person myself. The literacy rates in 1820, only around 12% of the world's population were able to read or write in some form, and now that's up to 86%. You're getting where I'm going with this, that we've transformed a lot in such a short period of time. One my son wanted to mention, he wanted me to look up to see internet connectivity back in 1820, which I had to tell him that we didn't have internet connectivity, and actually the World Wide Web was only established in 1999, but nearly 5 billion people around the world are in instant communication with each other and can connect on a daily basis through the internet. Like I said, these statistics show the remarkable progress that humanity has made. But as we know, each and one of us, there is one group in the world that has been left behind, and that is the unborn child. The collapse for the respect, for the value, and the beauty of the unborn child has collapsed. Next slide, please. As the last speaker today, well, penultimate speaker, Charles is going to say some thanks, but as the kind of last full speaker, I'm reminded that as much as we have moved on as a society, we all share a lot of common values, vision of where we need to be as a society. But the world around us, as David was saying, we live in cycles of how the world perceives things, but we sadly are in a period or a cycle where we no longer value human life or see that every life is sacred. We no longer recognize that we should love our neighbor as ourselves, or indeed that with the rights come responsibilities. We know that the culture of death seeks to redefine these values, these truths. We are living in what I call a democratic winter, a period not of just political and economic upheaval, but also of moral decline and erosion. Human dignity is no longer upheld as the foundation of a flourishing society. In the last decade alone, we've seen many traditionally Catholic nations bring in the most extreme abortion regimes, whether that be in Mexico, Argentina, or Ireland. And closer to home in Britain, as many of you know, we now have an abortion every 2.5 minutes, and worldwide 76, which is the equivalent of 300-400 a minute. Next slide, please. Today we've heard many great speakers, greater than I am, but we've heard about the horrors of the Nazi T4 program, the alarming situation within Canada that we could face over here if euthanasia and assisted suicide are legalized, the cruelty of pharaohs, both past and present, the collapse of morality under communism. And now, like I said, we are living through a democratic winter. Each of these periods, each of these phases is a sobering reminder of what happens when you're not on the right side of history. As the final speaker today, I'm mindful that history doesn't just remember our words, but we must remember those who have taken action before us. When I was at university, I had a great lecturer, a Christian man himself, who would always say, that it's not history that makes heroes, it's heroes that make history. Next slide, please. And I believe you're like me. You have taken the challenge of our times and stood up and recognized that you must be counted. Silence, complacency, and action are the greatest enablers of injustice. You've decided to show up and engage and join a movement that is built on love and compassion, both for the unborn child and the families and mothers that find themselves in these difficult situations. Perhaps the question we must now ask ourselves is not about the future, but about the present. What do we do now? What do we do today after this conference? And rather aptly, today, for those that are Catholic, it's the feast of St. Faustina. She said, "The past does not belong to me. The future is not mine. With all my soul, I try to make use of the present moment. And as you sit here today and throughout the day, please go home and think what one thing you can do after attending this conference." One of the reasons that I joined SPUC and that I love about SPUC is there's really something for everyone to get involved with, from the classroom to the courtroom. There's many opportunities to get involved, and you heard some of our speakers earlier this afternoon from our managers explaining the different works that we do. And there really is something for everyone to get involved in, whether you're interested in the pastoral side of our work, our education side of work, our political work, our comms work. There really is something for everything. And thanks to our supporters, we have been in the fight since day one. SPUC is proud of the fact that we were the first pro-life organisation established around the world, and that today we are the biggest in the UK. And that is only thanks to you, so thank you very much. Just in the last year, as I mentioned earlier, we've managed to educate more than 10,000 young people about hope and combating the culture of death. We've reached more than 2 million people on social media with our video work and our news work, so thank you so much for everything that you do. And I thought it was interesting also that when Catherine asked earlier, which, by the way, Catherine did very well, especially since she was just thrown in the spot about half an hour before, so well done, Catherine. As Catherine mentioned, we have many branches up and down the country, but the thing that took me aback today, actually, there was only about 5 or 6, 7 people that put their hand up who are involved with a branch with SPUC. So I'd really encourage you to speak to one of the staff, come speak to me, come to speak to any of the staff to get involved with our branches. They're not just good for sport. I'm not saying it because I'm here as the SPUC speaker, but really for your sake, to find that community, find like-minded people that you can get involved with, find that connection, find that support, and together we can end abortion. It's because it's your small acts of love and resistance that will topple and bring an end to the culture of death. I think the value that I hold dearest in my life, with my family life and at work, is hope, because I know that we will end abortion, and I know that we will do that because of people like you. Yes, history is shaped by ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and I believe it's people like you choosing to do what is right, decent and honourable, who will make the greatest difference. As Josh reminded us earlier, it's the people in our everyday life that we come across, whether it's our friends, our family, colleagues, even people in our own church that might not know about abortion or indeed the intrinsic evil that it is. But it's up to us, it's bestowed upon us to make that difference, to have those conversations with those people. Because really, the war on abortion will be won in Parliament, but the battles for the hearts and minds of our citizens will be won by you with the conversations that you have. Next slide, please. History shows us that transformation or big social change doesn't actually need a lot of people to achieve things. And John mentioned earlier in his remarks that there's a term, the creative minority, and really that is what we need to be, what we are actually, everyone in this room, a creative minority, the small proportion of the population that can bring sizable change to our world. Because for us, 1 + 1 is always greater than 2. This is our calling to be that creative minority. This is your calling today. We need individuals with the bravery to push boundaries, explore innovative solutions, and inspire others with a vision where a world where every life is valued. That minority must have the strength to stand firm against complacency and the creativity to push our movement forward. Research, sorry, I've got a cold today, that's why I'm mispronouncing some words. Research shows us that you only need a tiny percentage, like I said, a creative minority to really make a difference within a society. Academics have predicted that it's around only 10% of a society or a country that can bring about transformational change. And I think we know, many movements of change that have changed things up and down the country, but one of the most apparent, one of the ones that's brought about the most sizable change to our country is perhaps maybe the LGBT movement. A tiny percentage of the population, which if you look at the figures is about 3 to 5% of the population. And if we think of the change that they have achieved across such a short period of time, it really can show that what we could do is also possible. Our times present a choice between what is easy and what is right. And I know that you want to do what is right, and that is why you've chosen to be here today. And there'll be moments in this struggle when you do feel uncertain or lose hope or a bit displaced with what's going on. But please remain ever hopeful, because together we can end abortion. Every act of defiance against the culture of death, against this democratic winter, whether seen or unseen, makes a difference. Over the years with SPUC, I've met countless people up and down the country, whether it's in Scotland, whether it's in England, who have been inspirational, just taking small acts and making a big difference. As we heard earlier, the 2 young women who joined just a branch last year after seeing a video online, Sarah and Liz, and now have one of the biggest branches in the country. There's about 10, 15 of them who now meet in Manchester each and every week. The other person, or a few people I wanted to kind of just mention today, like I said, there's countless examples of people just doing everyday things, was a woman called Pauline, who I met a couple of weeks ago at the demonstration we had at the Scottish Parliament. And I spoke to her, and she was a bit shy at first, and kind of keeping herself to herself and not really wanting to get involved in the photos. And I said, "Oh, thanks for being here. What inspired you to be here?" And she said, "Hope. I had lost hope up until this point when I'd seen the demo. I'd lost hope, and I hadn't been involved with SPUC until this point. I'd kind of been involved for many years, and I'd not wanted to be involved because I thought, what's the point? But when buffer zones were introduced and they began to criminalize prayer outside abortion facilities, and I saw that you were having this demonstration today, I decided to come along and stand up and be heard again. So thank you, SPUC, for restoring my hope," she said. The other thing I wanted to mention also, like I said earlier, is that we do have branches across Scotland. There's only about 3 or 4 in Scotland. So if you can get involved with a local branch, or if you'd like to start a branch, please do reach out to one of the staff members. And there's 4 kind of individuals that I wanted to mention. So we have a branch in Glasgow. So if you're local to this area, you mustn't be too far if you've come here today. I do know someone came all the way from Aberdeen, so maybe not yourself. But the people I wanted to mention were Tony, Charlie, John, and Danny, who just started a branch 3-4 years ago. And they took that upon themselves after kind of being at a conference like this, hearing what was involved, and they wanted to make a difference. So you too can do that. And I think, looking around the room, and as Alethea joked, I like to chat to people, hear their stories and things. And it's remarkable when you chat to supporters, there's some people here today that this is their first conference, first event, first thing they've ever done with SPUC. And there are some people in this room who've actually been involved with SPUC 48, 49 years. So it's really a testament to the work that they've done to lay in the foundation. So thank you to them. Last slide, please. The democratic winter we face in the UK, as I said, is a call to action for all of us to defend that life. And as Winston Churchill said, "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it." And my plea to you today is to pick up that pen, pick up that placard, pick up something at the back of the room to get involved with SPUC and take something further away from today. We're not here just to observe or to hear things, we're here to act. So let us move forward together with the courage, with conviction, with the community that we have, knowing that our choices today will make a difference throughout history. Thank you very much. So, like Catherine, I was thrown in the last minute to introduce our final speaker, who's only going to speak for 5 minutes, so don't worry, you'll be able to escape soon. And that is my friend, my colleague, but also fellow member of the senior management team at SPUC. Alethea did give me a couple of notes on Charlie, so apparently he's kind, very good character, all those sorts of things, so I don't need to say much more than that. But she also did mention earlier about how we were interested in kind of personality types at SPUC and how that interacts and how we work together and things. And so Charlie, for those that are interested in the Myers-Briggs sort of thing, is an ENTJ. And for those who know the ENTJ type, that is the commander. So I'm being very respectful and kind with my remarks about Charlie. But also famous ENTJs are Steve Jobs, Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, and Napoleon Bonaparte. So without saying anything else, here is Charlie McCluskey. Over to you.